So I'm all about recalling this mayor. I'm not going to lie about it. Like, I think it's a good idea. But I don't think that he is anything spectacularly different from anything that's come before. I think that what we've had is a long tradition in our city and in our state of corruption. Has anybody here heard of Billy Long? He's been in the press this week. One person. Billy Long was a sheriff. Oh, good. Billy, this is a great story, y'all. Billy Long is a sheriff of Hamilton County who was running coke and running illegal gambling joints in gas stations and getting them to pay, give contributions to his campaign. That's organized criminal activity. He was selling guns to felons. All right, so when they talk about a gang problem in this city, I think the real gang that we have to worry about is our political system. Because what they're doing is they're stealing from us and they're giving to their friends and they think they can get away with it. That's happening again and again and again. But you have to understand, like, this viewpoint that I'm espousing to you is not, it doesn't fit within the broad frame of what people want to hear, right? And if you don't provide that historical context, being able to point to again and again and again all these different issues, then you're not going to be able to see, like, the pattern that unfolds through time. So another example of this is this week there's a tennis court, a publicly owned tennis court, right, in the city of Chattanooga. The person who's been running it for the last 10 years has made tens of thousands of dollars by offering private events there. Now, the private events are staffed by city employees. So he's hosting private events on public property that we own, that we then cannot come to without paying him. It's staffed with city employees that we're paying for, and he's pocketing all the money, and we get none of it. That's totally illegal. There's nothing legal about this. It's totally unethical. He never even signed a contract. The city says there was a contract. They haven't been able to prove it. They haven't been able to show it, and that's been widely reported in the press too. And now they're saying, well, they're going to form a contract, and they're just going to gloss over this, and nothing's going to happen to anybody. And this happens again and again and again. There's no accountability because there's no organized resistance, and the press is aiding and abetting this because they're not actually trying to provide a historical context of the pattern of corruption that we have in our city. So, just an ending. So, the press, I believe, does not let people speak for themselves. So if they come to interview me, they'll just take a soundbite, something very simple that fits into a narrative that's easier to understand. It does not provide broad historical context for the situations as they arise. It does not provide space for nuance or for complexity. And it doesn't exist to create informed citizens who should be pissed off and who should be doing something about these issues. Instead, they just try to sensationalize things within a given narrative without alienating the political establishment so that way they can keep having access to them. And then they can give you a bunch of advertisers. So I've said a lot, and I've kind of gone over a lot, and I know this is a lot of new information for all of you. But what do you guys think about that?
I think it's pretty crooked. I mean, everything you're pointing out is, I guess I should be more informed. I mean, where do you have to go digging to find out this kind of stuff? It's not in the mainstream.
Yeah, it's not. You know, I think it really, there's a need in this city for independent journalism, for bloggers, for anybody who wants to be able to show up and start having a voice in the process. I mean, like, we try to provide information as best we can through YouTube, and I have a personal blog, our organization has a blog, but that's a limited scope of people, and that doesn't, and it definitely, and then even then, the only people you have access to is people with internet connections, people with a computer. So there's a lot of people, especially the people at the lowest and deepest levels of society that are the most directly affected by our social choices, who won't have access to that information. So, you know, there's a need here in this city, and I think there's a market for it too. You know, I think if students were to get together and possibly think about forming an independent press, that's something that could actually make some money. So,
Chris, I think I told you that they did an assignment where they looked at Chattanooga coverage of recall, and so I was wondering if maybe you all would want to describe some of the things you found. Does it align pretty much with what Chris is saying, or did somebody find something different? Yes, Megan?
One of the articles I read was actually back in November, like with the initial talk of the recall. And the article I read was on the Times Free Press. And it started off the article by saying that when he was first elected in 2005, I think, and then re-elected in 2009, kind of talking about him, I guess, being, trying to popularize him or whatever. And then throughout the article, it kept saying like us versus them. And it gave like a short, like one sentence kind of argument about why, people want the recall. But I just thought it was interesting that there was that whole us versus them, and then at the very end it was like, oh, this is really unfortunate situation, with this division and stuff. So the language they used and stuff goes back with the whole framework thing, and I just thought it was interesting. So after hearing your
It's
side
really
about
interesting, yeah. The mayor, after, this went to court once already with Judge Hollingsworth, and Judge Hollingsworth just threw the book at us and basically destroyed the city charter in the process. And the mayor had a unity conference, because he's always been saying that this has been a distraction from the real issues of the city, and that's created all this division and all this hostility, and why would business want to come here and things like that. But at the unity conference, he never invited any of the people behind the recall. So I mean, how unified is that, right? Yeah, speaks to your point.
I did mine about a city council meeting, I think it was the 25th of January, and I just found it interesting because they were like, this is what the city council decided. Oh, and the opposition has one problem because the lawyer that they chose also represents Littlefield. He represents both the council and Littlefield. And then like at the very end, there's like one little sentence, oh, and they also decided to give this much money to the, some organization. And I was just like, shouldn't that have been the, the council trying to help the lower people instead of just talking about how, because all it did is mention y'all briefly. And it didn't even say the name, it just said the opposition. And I just thought that was pretty interesting that, they didn't cover the good stuff. They only covered, the one little thing about the government. Like, I don't know how to describe it. It was really interesting though because of how they did, they chose this, but they also chose this. Oh, and the opposition said that. It was like the most disorganized article I've ever read in my life.
I wholeheartedly think that there's no such thing as neutrality or objectivity. Everything is valued and written. Every choice, you have to make decisions. What's relevant? Whose voice counts, right? What facts are you going to put into that, right? The city attorney decision is one of the most complex decisions they've made, and it was crazy heated. I have a whole blog post about it. I mean, it was like fireworks at the city council, the people that were disagreeing with each other, because the city attorney has personally come out against the recall. He actually has gone on the record with the press saying that he can't serve two masters, meaning he can't serve the people of Chattanooga in the capacity as the city attorney and be the friend of the mayor. And so so if you're telling me that the city, on behalf of the voters, is sending the city attorney to represent us, but at the same time he's saying he's not going to do it, that's crazy. It creates so much bias there. Why don't they? So the other city council representatives, what they were saying is, let's just get another lawyer. Let's just hire a third-party lawyer who's not gone on the record saying this stuff, and they wouldn't even do that. The best thing I can do to radicalize anybody is take them to a few city council and county commission meetings, because you show up there and you're like, these people are idiots. They're just idiots. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. I am just kind of in shock to hear all of the stories that you're telling, because all of the articles I read from the Times Free Press lifted Littlefield up and praised him for everything he was doing, basically, and only showed comments from him. Like, he made a comment in one of the articles. It was like, basically, if someone steps up and runs that I think has the potential to better this city, then I'm not going to run. Like, I would consider not running. Like taking the city's, wanting to better the city. So I had no idea. I was like, this recall's stupid. This man obviously is doing everything great, and you just don't know anything behind the scenes. And the Times Free Press is really only showing one side of everything. So.
They've only used the word corruption once. Every time I've ever been in front of a news camera, in front of a reporter, I've just corruption, 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 corruption. I can't say it enough. Like, if I could just say just that word, I would. And they've only printed that word once. Once, y'all. We've made an entire video. Megan's got a great video y'all have to see. We renamed the 11th Street Market, 11th Street Farmers Market, the Ron Littlefield Memorial Dump. And this is a crazy story. So there's this guy named Willie Thompson. He's renowned for corruption. I can go back to Tennessee history. Ray Blanton was a governor who was busted by the FBI. for basically giving pardons to convicted criminals for money. And Willie Thompson was involved with that. Anyway, he owns some property downtown. He bought the farmer's market. It's built on the Superfund site, which means a toxic waste dump. It's leaching toxic waste, so you can't really use it for much. And he bought it for like $135,000. And word on the street is, and I can't prove this, so take it for what it is. I can't prove it. Is we have a long history of running money on election day. If you know what I mean, like people show up in vans to tell you to get in the car. Maybe there's a pack of cigarettes with some money in it, something like that, to tell you who to vote for. Willie Thompson's done stuff like that for people. Anyways, he's a good friend of the mayor's. And so he I can't prove that, but he owns, I can't prove this, he owns this property downtown, buys it for $135,000. The mayor goes to city council and asks them to pay $775,000 for it. Doesn't mention it's a Superfund site or anything like that, and doesn't give any real justification for it. Then after he buys it, gets the city council to allocate the money for it, because they've just been his rubber stamp the whole time, the press starts asking some questions, right? They start saying, well, why did you do that? And he says, well, I'm going to build a homeless shelter there. But the thing is, you can't build a homeless shelter there because people can't sleep on a ground that toxic waste is leaching out of. And it would cost millions of dollars to remediate that site, to dig up the dirt and move it, which is what you would have to do. And get this, Willie Thompson never paid any taxes on it. He got a loan and bought it, never paid on his loan, never paid property taxes or sewer taxes or anything like that, and was 6 months out from it being sold on the courthouse stairs. 6 months out. The mayor comes in and gives him enough money to pay off everything and pocket $500,000. Right? And there's an interesting Pulse article where the mayor was talking about another mayor looking at that site and how he was going to name it a memorial dump after him. So we thought, well, in honor of Ron Littlefield purchasing that for us, the voters, the taxpayers, and the citizens of Chattanooga, we should rename it the Ron Littlefield Memorial Dump. Now, I've talked about that story so many times until it's blue in the face. And no reporter has ever gone near it since the last election.
I was just kind of wondering, obviously this is something you're very passionate about, but why, if his term is almost up, like why do you still feel that it's so necessary to recall him?
It's a great question, absolutely. Accountability. He works for us. I mean, here's the thing that's so crazy. If you go, like I spoke at city council one time, and like if you ever go to city council, it's flat, right? And then it's just like I'm facing you. They sit above us. Whoever designed that room didn't have any clue about civics, right? Because we, the people, are above them. They work for us. They're accountable to us, right? And when they do stuff like this, we have the right to just, take it this way. There's other countries in the world way more democratic than us. Venezuela. Everybody calls them a 10-pot dictator. Venezuela's constitution has within it the recall of every single elected office all the way up to the president. In fact, Hugo Chavez has been recalled at one point in time. There's other countries that dissolve the entire government. They say, you know what, this just really isn't working for us. Let's have a new election. I imagine that the majority of people in the United States would actually like to do that to Congress right now, considering the fact that there was a recent poll said that that more Americans actually favor a communist takeover of our government than they do the Congress we currently have. I'm not making that up. So, I mean, at the end of the day is, what message are we telling anybody else that comes after Littlefield if we say you can do all this shit and still get away with it? And we're not going to do anything to you. There's no repercussions. There's no consequences. You know? I mean, there's consequences if you don't pay your bills. There's consequences, if you're driving too fast. But there doesn't seem to be consequences for the elite, for the people who are making the decisions that directly affect us, when they're being so blatantly unscrupulous.
Okay, so I have another part of this question. You said that when election time does come around, we have a candidate from Lookout, Signal, and Riverview. So why not step up and find someone that agrees with you in this whole process, that steps up and says, okay, I'm going to run for mayor because we don't want those three people happening. Because it's like, if nobody else steps up to the plate, how are we supposed to, we don't have any other options. Like, what are you supposed to do about that if nobody else is stepping up?
That's a good question. But I mean, again, it's not just me, right? Like, this is a problem that's due to all of us. The fact that y'all don't know these stories is important. It's something to reflect on. The fact that you don't know what's actually going on is purposeful. We're manufactured ignorant. At no point in time in your schooling were you taught how to build intentional relationships with other people and create new groups and devise strategies to affect real change, right? That's organizing. We are not taught to be citizens. We're not taught the process of how to work with one another to make our communities a better place. Instead, what we're taught is that government officials and corporations will do it for us and it'll be great. We're taught that meaningful structural change is what button you push in the ballot box. This politician or that politician. Or ethical consumption. You buy this pair of shoes and a kid in Africa gets a pair for free. But again and again, is what you'll learn is that the government has never given us anything of their own free will. They've never given us, they've never extended the right to vote to women or to minorities of their own free will. It came through organized social resistance, right? Corporations are the same way. They didn't give us the 8-hour workday for free. They didn't just wake up one morning and say, oh man, that's a great idea. Let's treat our workers with some respect. Now, that came about because people got organized and they were able to leverage what power they had against a system that was denying them the ability to make those decisions for themselves. And so that's what it's going to take. It's going to take a lot more than just getting somebody elected to office. It's going to take the citizens coming together, becoming more informed, becoming more engaged, and then being able to actually work within their own communities to make it a better place.